He scared the hell out of me. In 2002, I was 35 years old, but I have had a gift that I've been aware of since I was 10 years old. In 2002, we were shopping for our first home. I was looking at probably our fifth house to pick from that day and realized that this gift was way too much for me to try to handle or understand on my own. The real estate agent took us into the house, which right away I picked up on a truly horrible foul smell that I cannot describe. It was like a cross between rotting meat and high heat, and that was only about 2 feet in the doorway. As my husband and children continued into the hallway and dining room, I couldn't. I got this sudden sense of extreme anxiety, hatred, anger, and just an extreme heaviness about where I was. Not to mention, oh god, that smell. So I didn't move, not one more step. I felt something say, "Get out of my house. This is my house. Leave. Get out now, now, now." Now I say felt something because, well, I don't actually hear anything. I just can't explain it. It's just the emotion it was trying to convey to me. This entity or spirit gave me a feeling of evilness to my bones, pure evil. The hair on my body stood up. I had goosebumps that came with a chill that makes your bone feel hollow. And it wasn't cold in the slightest, and honestly, I felt that if I stood there any longer, I was going to be in danger, but yet my family felt nothing. They were a bit creeped out due to the fact that obviously there was something wrong with me, who was still standing in the doorway. In any case, I said quite firmly and in no uncertain terms that we're leaving now. I don't think we were in that house 10 minutes, but it felt like an hour. I was exhausted. The agent looked at me peculiarly, and when I told her someone had died here and that we didn't want the place, her look changed to fake surprise. I knew right away, looking at her at that moment, she was hoping we wouldn't have heard the news stories on that house. Turns out that the house was up on the market for about 9 to 12 months after a young man who was selling drugs out of this house jumped out of his bedroom window, trying to get away from officers with a warrant for his arrest. And a gun in his hand was shot and killed there. It was also found that this young man was playing around with dark cults, as well as some other bad things. Anyways, I went to talk to the real estate agent at her office about a week later, wanting her to know that I'm not a lunatic and was sorry for being what may have been perceived as rude behavior. Much to my surprise, she was not only understanding but apologetic for showing me the house after what she discovered. The bedroom in that house was right off of the front door. Where the smell was the strongest was this young man's bedroom and the room where he died trying to jump out of his window. That young man certainly didn't want us there, but there was more than that. In all his rage, there was also flickers of confusion, like where am I? Why can't I get out? But moreover, it was rage. Rage was ruling him, I think. Now, I've always had premonitions, but one big one that actually saved my life from a speeding car down an alley one day, that one scared me. I've seen 2 spirits in my life. One of an old man with a cane, old jeans, white t-shirt, with suspenders walking from my bathroom to my bedroom, and a woman's hand sitting next to my grandmother's hand as she sat on the bed brushing her hair. These things were never scary for me. My family had always had spirits in among us. It's just life. But this young man scared me so badly to my core that I shut it all down. I refused to leave myself open in any way because I had children, and I never, ever want them to feel that kind of evil. Well, anyways, life has gone by. My children have grown and gone. The only one who shows a small amount of the gift is my 24-year-old son. Having more life experience now, I am becoming interested in exploring my gifts again. I want to see what else I'm capable of to a point. I've always been able to tell when the dead are around, and I just haven't acknowledged them. That way controlling what happens. So, what do I do now? Where do I start? There's so many fakes out there. I just wish there was someone real I could talk to. Estate sale, Phoenix. Mom and I went to Phoenix from Flagstaff to the Parade of Homes with her friend and her friend's 2 daughters one year in the 90s. Mom was always going to Phoenix for one reason or another. I think she preferred it to Flagstaff. My dad moves us often, so I think they were only in Flagstaff for 7 or 8 years. I stayed 12 to finish school. Anyways, we went to the parade, like we did every year, and then wondered what to do with the rest of the afternoon. My mom spotted a sign for an estate sale, so we went to investigate. We pulled up to a huge white mansion with doors wide open and cars parked everywhere. I wanted to stay in the car. I was really feeling ill looking at the house, but my mom was turning off the car and I didn't want to roast to death. I hadn't eaten anything out of the ordinary, and the sick feeling only happened as we drove towards the estate. When we got to the house, there was a woman sitting in the entry at a makeshift table and told us to go and take a look around. I didn't hear her, but my mom later said that it was the Maytag family's house. I went up the tiled stairs and into the hallway, which was also tiled. I had to hang on to the walls. It was ridiculous how I felt ill. There was a pink bedroom on the left with a woman looking at something to buy, and I started to get a very strong impression to either jump out the window myself or that someone previously had thrown a person out the window. I stayed in the hallway and stood on tippy toes. Out the window was concrete and a pool. I kept walking and leaning down to the end bedroom, not taking much notice of the furniture for sale or the people browsing. I got to that bedroom, the master, and took a look into the bathroom. As I glanced into the mirror, I saw superimposed on my reflection that of a little girl. I looked at her for a minute, turned around, and quickly went back down the stairs. By the time I found Mom and her friend in the stage area, I was in tears. I said, "I'm going to the car. I feel horrible." With every step I took from that house, the better I felt. Mom said in the car on the way back that she thought something was weird there. I was still feeling ill, although it gradually got better the farther we got away, so I said nothing. I'm still bothered by that experience. Has anything heard of anything happening there? I wish I had the address or could find it again. It was a terrible feeling. Five-bed house with cheap rent. Back when I was young, I was a broke college student, so a friend and I thought we had stumbled upon a deal of a lifetime, a huge 5-bedroom house with 2 bathrooms for dirt cheap rent. The house was in a kind of out-of-the-way place in Virginia, but it suited our needs, and the rent was unbelievably cheap. Let me preface this by saying that in the Commonwealth of Virginia, there are no disclosure laws in real estate, meaning that the buyer and renter is not entitled to know the history of the house before signing on the dotted line. Within a month of moving into this house, odd things began happening. The electricity didn't work very well. At first, we attributed this to the fact that the house was very old, built in the early 1900s, and the most recent rewiring of the house had been done in the 50s. Also, the main breaker for the house was located outside in a barn that stood about 20 yards from the house itself and was connected by several crude-looking overhead wires. Whenever the breakers tripped, which was at least 4 times a week, we'd have to get the flashlight and go to the barn to flip them back on. The electricity wasn't the only problem, though. We had an answering machine that never recorded any messages. Sometimes the light would be blinking and we would push it to play. It was nothing but static. This was before DVR, and we worked a lot of nights, so we would try to record our shows, but it never worked. Just static and white noise. We also found that odd pictures never turned out or in around the house. We went through 13 rolls of film before finally giving up. The first time we realized that we were dealing with more than just bad wiring was approximately 4 weeks after moving in. We were heading to the garage, and we came to a dead stop. There was a man standing in our garage. He just stood there and was completely oblivious when we screamed. My friend slammed the door and locked it and called out to the man that we had a gun and we were calling the cops. She retrieved the said gun and we opened the door again. The man was gone, just poof, vanished. As we previously stated, there was only 2 ways in, door through kitchen or automatic door outside. The automatic door was very noisy, so we would have heard if it opened, and we had been in the kitchen all morning, so there was no way he got in that way. We were baffled, but went on like this was normal, right? That incident seemed to open the floodgates because after that, it became more obvious that we were dealing with something not of this world. We used to hear the sound of a baby crying, followed by the sound of a rocking chair up in the attic. We investigated and found nothing. certain spots would always remain cold. Cold is not something you would come across in Virginia in the summer. Numerous times we woke up to find all the contents of the pantry on the floor. There were dozens of other odd things that happened, but I'm just highlighting some of the more bizarre occurrences. As things began to escalate, we got more and more nervous. The pinnacle was when we were sitting in the kitchen one evening playing cards and waiting for some guests to arrive. Naturally, the lights went out, so we went to trip the breaker. When we came out of the barn, we saw our friend running up the steps of the porch with a baseball bat. We asked what he was doing. He told us he saw a man standing in our living room, then walked up the stairs. Scared, we crowded behind him and searched the house with a bat and a gun. Nothing. About 2 weeks after that, my roommate's boss asked her why she never returned his calls about switching a shift. She said she hadn't gotten any messages, and he proceeded to tell her about the man that answered the phone and told her we were out. Upon further investigation, we discovered that several other people had the same experiences when they called. We were thoroughly freaked out by this point, so we decided to ask where the town's residents about the house. We found out that the house was always vacant within 6 months of it being rented out. Although we were scared, we still stayed because of how cheap it was. One evening, we were in the living room watching TV when we heard a huge thud against the basement door. When I say thud, I mean the whole wall shook and the door frame came loose. The door was locked, but we were scared and put a chair against it. We heard growling on the other side and claws on the door, so we again got the gun. We figured at first that a wild animal must have gone in here, so we went outside to check the entrance. It was bolted shut. We even checked the tiny windows. Nothing broken. We finally went back into the house and opened the basement door. Nothing there. I've never seen claw marks like that before or since. It was as if whatever had done it had only 3 toes. Besides, nothing that was indigenous to the area was 3-toed or could have gotten in there without opening the door or breaking the window. Not to mention, none of the local animals, say a bear, could have exerted that much force to warp a door frame. We moved a week later. We could never really come up with any idea of what happened in that house or why. To this day, it remains a mystery. And to this day, nobody lives there more than 6 months before leaving.